Okay guys, so this time let's continue our discussion sa Philippine government na and constitution. So ang emphasis lang natin dito yung mga common terms na palaging lumalabas sa board exam. So let's start with what is political science. Now when we say political science, it is the study of the police. Again, political science, it is the study of the police, and it is a specialized study of the state, its government, and politics. So, di ba, pag political science, it's more on constitution, it's more on the state, it's more on the government, it's more on politics. So, yan yung topic natin for today when it comes to political science. Now, ang nakastipulate, ito is ang study ng polis. Now, what is polis? It is a Greek word. Ang ibig sabihin, city or tantamount to today's state. So, ibig sabihin, when we say political science, it is the study of the city or it is the study of the state. Now, ano yung difference ng state, ng nation, and ng government? Now, start muna tayo with the word state. Now, when we say state, it has some degree of, ang clue natin, permanence. And ito siya ang political concept. Ibig sabihin, when we say state, it just refers to the patch of land with a sovereign government. So pag state, yan yung lupa with a sovereign government. But when we say nation, it is racial in nature, bound by a common race or language as well as customs and traditions. So again, when we say nation, since racial siya in nature, ibig sabihin it refers to the group of people na bound sila in a single body kasi shared ang kanilang culture, shared ang kanilang values, ang kanilang folkways, ang kanilang language, or even ang religion. So ibig sabihin, when we say state, ito yung political concept kasi nagre-refer sa land or sa patch of land with a sovereign government. Pero pag nation, it is racial in nature, ang group ng mga tao or group of people with one or with a single body. So that is nation. Now, ano yung mga elements ng state? Una is ang people. When we say people, paki-remember, ang lumalabas before sa board exam ang elements ng state, lalo na pag GENED. So pag elements of state, start tayo with people. Just remember the word inhabitants and ang population. So again, people, inhabitants, or the population of the state that comprises its citizens. So pag may question sa state, sino yung inhabitants? Answer is, ang people, sila ang citizens. Next, territory. Ang territory, guys, lumabas ito before and then verbatim lang ang nasa question. Ano daw ang tawag sa definite geographic area occupied by the people? Ibig sabihin, ano ang tawag sa area kung saan tayo na belong? That is our territory. So meron na tayong citizens, ang people. Meron na tayong area, and that is our territory. Now, hindi sapat na may dalawa lang, kailangan meron tayong government. Now, when we say government, it is the agency or instrumentality through which the will of the people is formulated, expressed, and realized. Ibig sabihin, ang agency, ito yung instrument or part ng state wherein ang mga will natin or yung mga gusto natin is na-hear or na-formulate, na-express, and na-realized. Next, ang sovereignty, remember lang, supreme power. So when we say sovereignty, it is the supreme power of the state to rule over its citizens within its territory and be free from control of foreign states. So again, basic lang tayo sa POSAI. Pag elements of the state, pag inhabitants, answer, people. Pag definite geographic area, sagot is territory. Pero pag agency wherein ang will natin is na-formulate, na-express, na-realize, sagot, government. Pero pag ang nakasulat, supreme power of the state, answer is sovereignty. So ano yung four elements ng state? We have people, sunod, territory, sunod, government, and sovereignty. Again, ano yung elements ng state? Una is people, next, territory, next, government, and sovereignty. Now remember, ang state, di ba, ang patch of land na meron tayong sovereignty. Now, ano yung different theories in the evolution of state? Let's start with the natural theory. When we say natural theory, according to this theory, the formation of the state results from man's natural inclination to associate and interact. So ibig sabihin, pag natural theory, ibig sabihin natural na sa atin mga tao ang makipag-socialize, ang makipag-interact. That is why through interaction and through association, naka-form tayo ng isang lugar na tinawag nating state. So that is natural theory. Next, when we say divine theory, divine, this theory holds the view that the state is of divine creation and its rulers are of God's chosen ones. So pag ang state daw is create ng divine creation or ng creator, and then ang mga rulers kay mga gods na pinili jud sila, so that is divine theory. Next, we have here force theory. Ito yung halos nangyari sa Pilipinas kasi gi-invade tayo. So pag force theory, this theory asserts that the state emerged as a consequence of ang clue, invasion, force, or coercion. Gi-invade, gi-colonize ang isang bansa, kaya nakuha siya, so that is force theory. Next, pag patriarchal theory, according to this theory, state evolves from families. Kasi di ba pag patriarchal, yan yung si papa or si lolo or mga lalaki ang na-follow. So, ibig sabihin, pag ang state nag-evolve from families, that is patriarchal. And ang last, we have social contract theory. This explains that states were formed by deliberate and voluntary agreement among people. So balik tayo ha, pag natural theory, ibig sabihin, natural na sa atin ang makipag-socialize. Second, pag divine theory, ang state gi-create ng divine being and then ang mga rulers, ang God's chosen one. Next, pag force theory, nagkaroon ng invasion, force, or coercion. Next, pag patriarchal theory, ang state daw nag-evolve from families. And pag social contract theory, nag-agree ang mga tao. That's the reason why naka-form ng isang state. So yan yung mga theories kung bakit nag-evolve ang state. And guys, di ba sabi ko kanina, ang palaging lumalabas ang elements, yung people, territory, government, and sovereignty. Ang second na lumalabas ang branches of the government. Now, when we say branches of the government, meron tayong tatlo: legislative, executive, judicial. Again, ano yung three branches of the government? Sagot, legislative, executive, judicial. Now, when we say legislative, ito yung law-making body. Kasi nga, di ba, nag-legislate sila, nag-formulate sila ng mga batas. Ibig sabihin, sa Pilipinas, ang legislative body natin is ang ating Congress. Ang Congress, meron tayong Senate and meron tayong House of Representatives. So, yung mga tagagawa ng mga batas, yung mga senators natin, sila yung part sa legislative branch ng ating government. Next, when we say executive, from the word execute, sila ang law implementing body, and always remember, pag executive, diyan na belong ang ating president. Next, pag judicial, sila ang law interpreting body. So pag judicial branch ng government, sila yung nag-decide kung guilty or not guilty ba ang isang tao, because sila ang nag-interpret ng mga batas from the legislative branch. So pag judicial branch of the government, dito na belong ang Supreme Court. Ano pa? Ang Chief Justice, ang mga associate justices. So again, ilan ang branches ng ating government? We have 3. Ano yung 3 branches? We have legislative, executive, judicial. Sino ang law-making body? Answer is legislative. Sino ang law-interpreting body? Sagot is judicial. Sino ang law-implementing body? Answer is executive. Saan na belong si President? Sagot, executive. Saan na belong ang Supreme Court and Chief Justice? Answer is judicial. Saan na belong ang Congress? Answer is legislative. So again, ano yung 3 branches ng ating government? We have legislative, executive, judicial. So tingnan lang, pag ang hinahanap ba is lawmaking, law implementing, law interpreting. Now, meron tayong fundamental powers of the state. Ibig sabihin, ito yung pwede nilang gawin sa atin. So part na ito sa state. Una, police power. When we say police power, It is the power of the state to, ang clue, enact laws or regulations in relation to persons and property for the promotion of public health, morals, safety, and general welfare. Ang lumabas before is, ano daw ang power ng state wherein ang focus ang general welfare ng mga inhabitants or ang general welfare ng citizens. Answer is police power. Again ha, police power ang kanya is i-promote ang general welfare. Next, we also have power of eminent domain. So ito yung right or power of the state to, ang clue, take private property for public use upon payment of just compensation. So again, pag power of eminent domain, may right ang ating gobyerno na kuhanin ang private property the moment it's for public use, but remember with payment of just compensation. Commonly nangyayari ang power of eminent domain lalo na sa mga road widening projects. Pag ang bahay nyo is malapit lang sa highway, di ba sometimes nag-e-extend yan sila. So pwede yan siya, dapat kunin ang property mo, kunin ang private property kasi for public use siya eh. Pero with payment of just compensation, babayaran ka sa piece of land na ibinigay mo sa gobyerno. So that is the power of eminent domain. You cannot say no to the government the moment gamitin na yan siya for public use. Kaya gani, pag may bahay na tayo, dapat malayo sa highway or dapat malayo-layo sa mga kalsada. Kasi pwede yan siyang kunin ng ating gobyerno pero bayaran ka din naman. Pero malapit na yung bahay mo sa highway. Next, ang power of taxation. So ang gobyerno guys, meron silang power na magkuha sa atin ng ating taxes depende sa ating sahod. That's the reason why hindi tayo makasay no sa taxes. Kasi yan yung nag-i-improve ng ating gobyerno. So pag power of taxation, power of the state to impose proportional charges upon persons, property, or rights for the use and support of the government and to enable it to discharge a legitimate function. Ibig sabihin, pag hindi tayo bumayad ng ating taxes, pwede tayo makasuhan ng tax evasion. Kasi as citizens sa Pilipinas, we are required to give our taxes or yung share natin sa ating sahod sa ating government. So yan yung ginagawa nila ng mga tulay, ng mga kalsada. So that is power of taxation. So again, ang ating gobyerno, meron silang three fundamental powers: police power, eminent domain, power of taxation. Pag ang clue natin, ang focus is ang general welfare, answer is police power. Pag ang focus is ang right ni government na kunin ang private property for public use, answer eminent domain, but again remember with payment of just compensation. And pag meron silang gina-impose na charges sa ating mga sahod, that is the power of taxation. So again, police power, eminent domain, and the power of taxation. Is our government. So when we say government, it is an institution that has the power to make laws and enforce these certain territories, people, and other organizations. And just remember, it is derived from the Latin word cubimaculum, which means a rudder used to steer, control, or direct. Ibig sabihin, ang government natin, sila ang may right na i-control tayo or i-direct tayo kasi sila yung agency wherein ang will natin is ma-realize and then ang will natin is marinig ng mga nasa gobyerno. Now, ano yung iba't ibang forms ng ating government? Now, let's start with according to the number of persons in whom sovereignty resides. Let's start with monarchy. Pag monarchy, just remember, rule of one. Again, pag monarchy, ano yung i-remember? Rule of one. So it is a form of government in which the supreme and final authority resides in one person whose word is considered law. Usually sa England, di ba monarchy yan sila, queen and king ang gina-follow. Next, when we say aristocracy, rule of few, ibig sabihin rule ng mayayaman sa Pilipinas kasi konti lang ang mayayaman. So pag aristocrats or aristocracy, rule of few, it is a government in which the political power belongs to the, ang clue, elite of the society. who have the high social status, wealth, and political power of heredity nobility. Kaya nga 'di ba sabi ko aristocracy, mayayaman sa lipunan kasi sila yung mga elite ng society. So again, pag isa lang, that is monarchy. Pag few, that is aristocracy. Pero pag rule of many, yan yung sa Pilipinas, and that is democracy. So it is a form of government in which the supreme political power is exercised by a clue, majority of the people. And Abraham Lincoln puts it democracy, it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So again, pag rule of many, democracy. Pag rule of one, monarchy. Pag rule of few, aristocracy. Pero ang democracy, guys, we have two types. Pwede siya direct, pwede din siya indirect. Now, when we say direct democracy, if the people govern directly and immediately in an assembly, practicable only in small areas and assembly. Pero guys, wag na mag-focus sa direct, focus tayo sa indirect kasi yan yung sa Pilipinas. Ang Pilipinas, yes, democracy tayo, rule of many, pero indirect. Kasi ang Pilipinas, republican or rule tayo through representative. If the people govern through ang clue, chosen representatives, applicable in densely populated groupings. So i-remember lang ang Pilipinas, democracy, rule of many, pero ang ma-follow lang is ang chosen natin na representatives, kaya Republican ang Pilipinas or indirect democracy. Ano yung indirect democracy, ma'am? Example, di ba nagkakaroon tayo ng election? And through election, pinipili natin yung mga representatives na gusto nating mag-rule sa Pilipinas. In that way, hindi tayo mismo ang naka-rule, but meron tayong representative through election. So that is indirect or republican or through representative na democracy, and yan yung sa Pilipinas. So again, pag rule of one, answer is monarchy. Next, pag rule of few, sagot is aristocracy. Pag rule of many, answer is democracy. Ano ang Pilipinas? Indirect democracy. Now, what if, according to the distribution of powers of the central government, ang Pilipinas, guys, unitary tayo. Kasi it is a form of government in which the control of the national government and the local affairs is exercised by the central or the national government. Pero ang ginapropose ni Duterte before is ang federalism or federal government. It is a form of government in which the power of the government are, ano yung nakasulat? Distributed between the central government and the local government. Ibig sabihin, in every region, meron tayong leaders. So that is federal or federalism. Pero again, ang Pilipinas, unitary. So let's complete it. Ang Philippines, democracy. But to be specific, ano yun siya? Indirect. Next, in terms of the power of central government, ano ang Pilipinas? Tayo is unitary. Yan lang i-remember. Democracy, indirect, plus unitary. Now, what if, according to the relationship of the legislative and executive branches of the government, sa time ni Marcos, nagkaroon tayo ng parliamentary. So when we say parliamentary, nag-merge, nag-fuse ang executive and legislative. It is a type of government characterized by, ang clue natin, fusion of power of the legislative and executive. Ibig sabihin, sa time ni Marcos, sa 1973 na Constitution, nagkaroon tayo ng parliamentary system of government wherein nag-merge ang executive and legislative. Nawala yung Congress, na-abolish yung Congress because ang gumagawa na ng mga batas is si Marcos and siya din ang nagpatupad ng mga batas. That is parliamentary. This means that there is, ang clue, no separation of powers between the branches of the government. So again, pag parliamentary, ang unang i-remember, fusion of powers and no separation of powers. Pero ang Pilipinas ngayon, sa 5th Philippine Republic, hindi tayo parliamentary, tayo is presidential. So this type of government is characterized by weak ties between legislative and executive branches and by shifting balance of power. So ibig sabihin, sa 5th Philippine Republic, medyo okay siya kasi nakabalance ang power. This system operates on the principle of, ang clue, separation of powers among the branches of the government. So pag ang nakasulat, no separation of powers, parliamentary. Pag ang nakasulat, separation of powers, iba ang legislative, iba ang executive, that is presidential. So i-complete natin ang Pilipinas. Una, tayo is democracy, to be specific, indirect. Next, tayo is unitary, and ang Pilipinas is presidential. Yan lang yung tatlo na i-remember na related sa Philippines. Now, ano ang Constitution? So when we say Constitution, ang clue natin is fundamental law of the land. So pag may question, what is the fundamental law of the Philippines? Answer is Constitution. Ano ang gina-follow natin ngayon na Constitution? 1987 Philippine Constitution. So it is the fundamental law of the land by which the fundamental powers of the government are established, limited, and defined, and by which those powers are distributed among several departments for their more safe and useful exercise for the benefit of the body politics. Ang i-remember lang, pag Constitution, fundamental law of the land. Huwag na magpa-stress. Pag may question, what is the fundamental law of the Philippines? Answer is Constitution. Ano ang ginagamit natin ngayon na Constitution? Answer is 1987 Philippine Constitution. Now, ang Pilipinas, meron tayong different na mga constitutions starting off with the Malolos Constitution sa Malolos Republic, which approved for the establishment of Philippine Republic. So ibig sabihin, sa time ni Emilio Aguinaldo, ang gamit nila is Malolos Constitution because meron tayo Malolos Republic. And remember, ang Malolos Republic, yan yung first ever natin na republic sa Pilipinas. Next, after Malolos Constitution, nagkaroon tayo ng 1935 Constitution, wherein yan yung sa time natin sa Commonwealth as well as sa Third Republic. So ang chairman sa 1934 Constitutional Convention is si Claro M. Recto, pero pag masayna na yan siya guys, 1935 na yan siya. And ratified by the Filipino people. So again, nag-start tayo with Malolos Constitution, Aguinaldo, followed by the 1935 Constitution, and binago siya ni Ferdinand Marcos pagdating ng 4th Philippine Republic, ginawa niyang 1973 Constitution. And always remember, pag sa time ni Marcos, parliamentary, naka-merge ang executive and legislative department. Now, ang chairman sa 1971 na CONCON, si former President Carlos P. Garcia and si Diosdado Macapagal. Pero guys, wag na mag-focus kay Malolos, 1935, 1973 because ngayon, ang gamit na po natin is ang 1987 Constitution. So nagkaroon tayo ng CONCON, ang chairman is si Cecilia Muñoz Palma. So ratified by the Filipino people February 2, 1987 and approved by the Constitutional Commission. So again na, ang Constitution ng Pilipinas ngayon, 1987 Constitution. Now, ano ang citizenship? Now, when we say citizenship, it is a term denoting clue, membership of a citizen in a political society, which membership implies reciprocally a duty of allegiance on the part of the member and duty of protection on the part of the state. So when we say citizenship, ito yung membership natin sa Pilipinas. Tayo ay mga Filipino citizen, ibig sabihin we are obliged na dapat ang allegiance natin is sa Pilipinas lamang para maprotektahan din tayo ng government in return. So that is citizenship. Pero meron tayong general ways of acquiring citizenship. Una is involuntary method. When we say involuntary method, wala kang ginawa, by birth mo yan siya nakuha. Because of blood relationship or place of birth. So pag involuntary method, by birth, mama, papa mo Pilipino, automatic ikaw is Filipino. Sometimes din, place of birth, lalo na sa US. Pag sa US ka pinanganak, ibig sabihin, ikaw is US citizen. Pero tayo sa Philippines, ang gina-follow natin is ang blood relationship. Kaya nga 'di ba sa Pilipinas, kahit na half Pinoy yan siya, automatic Filipino citizen yan siya kasi we are on blood relationship. Pero meron din tayong voluntary method. Ang tawag dyan is naturalization. Example, meron kang AFAM, meron kang foreigner, and yung foreigner mo, i-give up niya yung kanyang isang citizenship and then kanyang i-adapt ang citizenship mo. So ang tawag dyan is voluntary method and that is through naturalization. Except in case of collective naturalization of the inhabitants of a territory which takes place when it is ceded by one to another as a result of conquest or treaty. So i-remember nyo lang guys, nakuha natin ang pagiging Pilipino, pwede siya dalawa. Pwede siya by birth, that is involuntary. Pwede din siya through voluntary method and that is naturalization. Now, ano yung involuntary method or yung citizenship by birth? So we have two principles. Start tayo with jus sanguinis. So when we say jus sanguinis, it is ang relationship by blood. So ang Pilipinas, ang gina-follow natin guys, jus sanguinis. Pag mama, papa mo Pinoy, Pinoy ka. Pag mama mo Pinoy, papa mo Amerikano, considered ka as Filipino citizen din. Pero later may mga dual na mga citizen. So pag relationship by blood, again, that is jus sanguinis. The basis of the acquisition of citizenship under this rule is blood relationship. The children follows the citizenship of both of the parents or one of them, and this is the predominating principle in the Philippines. Pero meron ding mga countries na gina-follow nila, example, ang US is ang place of birth and that is jus soli or jus loci. Ang place of birth ang basis nila for acquiring citizenship under this rule. Pero sometimes meron tayong mga dual citizen wherein sa US sila pinanganak pero both ang kanilang parents ay mga Filipino. So nagkaroon sila ng dual citizenship. Pero pag ikaw, mama, papa, tapos mga Filipino and then sa Pilipinas ka talaga pinanganak, that is jus sanguinis. Pero pag place of birth, that is jus soli. Now, paano naman pag voluntary method, yung naturalization? Ways of acquiring citizenship through naturalization. Una is judgment of the court. The foreigner who wants to become a Filipino citizen must first apply for naturalization with the proper regional trial court. Pero hindi na Filipino ang tawag sa kanya or hindi Filipino citizen but naturalized Filipino citizen. He must have all the qualifications as provided by law and must comply with all the procedures and conditions prescribed. But guys, GENED lang tayo. So sa majorship na mas madiscuss ano yung ways sa naturalization, ang i-remember nyo lang, pag naturalization, ito yung voluntary method. Pwede din siya by direct act of Congress. In this case, ang Congress ang maggawa ng law granting citizenship to a foreigner. So again, pag may AFAM ka and then gusto niya maging Filipino, pwede. And that is through naturalization. Again, that is through naturalization. Okay guys, so let's continue. Ano yung suffrage? When we say suffrage, it is our right and obligation to vote in the election. So of the government officers and in the decision of public questions submitted to the people. So again, we say suffrage, yung right natin to vote. Now, sino yung pwedeng makavote? Una, under the Constitution, Filipino citizens can exercise this right as long as they comply with the following requirements. Una, at least 18 years old. Sunod, not disqualified by law, ibig sabihin, Pinoy. Next, a resident in the country for at least 1 year and a resident of the place where they intend to vote for at least 6 months immediately preceding the election. So makavote ka sa locality mo the moment 6 months ka na nagstay doon. Now, let's start discussing ano yung legislative department. Remember, when we say legislative department, sila ang law-making body. Dito na bilang ang Congress, ang Senators at ang House of Representatives. Now, when we say legislative power, ito yung authority under the Constitution too. Ang clue natin is make laws and alter them. So remember, pag legislative, nag-legislate, nagagawa ng mga batas, Congress, and then bicameralism, may upper house and lower house, ang Senate at ang House of Representatives. Now, ano yung composition ng Philippine Congress? We have here the Senate. So, i-remember nyo guys na ang Philippine Congress, bicameralism. When we say bicameralism, meron tayong two houses. Ang upper house, ang Senate. Ang lower house, ang House of Representatives. Now, pag Senate, the upper house of the Congress. It consists of 24 senators, and the Constitution limits the term of a senator to no more than 2 terms. So, ibig sabihin guys, baka masya kayo ma'am, bakit 24 senators? Pero yung give-vote lang natin last time sa election ay 12 senators. Ang nangyari kasi guys, ang election ng mga senators every after 3 years. So every after 3 years, magkakaroon tayo ng election sa mga senators. Meron tayong mga incumbent senators at ang mga newly elected senators. Example, last 2019, ang na-elect na mga senators, example, last 2019, we have Cynthia Villar. Now, 2019, 6 years ang term ng senator. So 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So kailan pa mag-end ang term ni Cynthia Villar? 2025. Pero remember guys, nag-election na naman tayo pagka ngayon, 2022. So sa 2022, nadagdag na naman sa posisyon sila, example, Robin Padilla. So si Robin Padilla, another 6 years. So 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. Mag-end ang posisyon ni Robin Padilla is 2028 pa. So that's the reason why 12 senators ang gina-vote natin every after 3 years, pero pagdating nila sa Senado, 24 na sila lahat kasi meron tayong incumbent at meron tayong newly elected senators. Bawal kasi guys na every after 3 years, mag-elect tayo ng 24 senators. Walang mabilin or walang maiiwan na mga senators. So what's the purpose? So dapat may mga naiwan pa at may mga bago para at least yung mga naiwan, sila yung magpatuloy at yung mga bago, sila yung mag-a-adjust or mag-a-adapt pa sa sistema. So that's the reason why ang total natin ngayon sa Senate, we have 24 senators. 12 from 2019 and then another 12 ngayon, 2022. So a total of 24. Now, ang Constitution, ang limit lang ng senator is no more than 2 terms. Kung ang term ng senator ay 6 years, dapat 12 years lang sila in service. Hindi na sila makatakbo after that term. And ang House of Representatives, sila ang lower house of the Congress. And the 1987 Constitution states that members of the House of Representatives shall be composed of not more than 250 members unless otherwise fixed by the law. So again, ang sa House of Reps sa baba, sila yung mga congressman, mga congresswoman natin, mga party list system na mga representatives. Sila yung nasa lower house, pero still part sila sa paggawa ng mga batas. Now, punta tayo kay Senate. In terms of composition and election, meron silang 24 senators na members and then diniscuss ko na kanina bakit 24 ang senators who are elected at large by qualified voters as may be provided by law. Ang term of office ng Senate ay 6 years pero dili siya mo more than 2 terms. So dapat 12 years lang ang maximum na term or of office ng isang senator. Now, ano yung qualifications ng mga senators? Una, natural-born citizen of the Philippines. Ibig sabihin, kailangan hindi ka nagpa-naturalize. Ikaw talaga is natural-born Filipino citizen, mama, papa is Filipino talaga by blood. Next, at least 35 years of age on the date of the election day. So i-remember guys ha, lalo na ang mga age nila, pag senator dapat 35 years old and above. Ilang years ang term of office? 6 years. Ilan ang members? 24 senators. Every kailan ang election? Every after 3 years. And kailangan makabasa and makasulat, able to read and write. Next, registered voter and a resident of the Philippines for not less than 2 years immediately preceding the election day. So again, for the senators, kailangan 35 years old and above and resident ng Pilipinas for 2 years. Next, ang House of Representatives, pag composition, Kung kanina ang Senate, 24 lang na senators, this time ang House of Representatives, mayroon silang 250 members, not more than 250. Popularly known as mga congressmen elected from legislative or congressional districts and through party list system. Now, kung kanina ang senators, 6 years, ang term of office lang ng House of Representatives, 3 years lang sila. Ano yung mga qualifications? Una, natural-born citizen of the Philippines. Second, mas bumaba yung age, 25 years of age on the election day. Next, able to read and write and except for party list representative, a registered voter. Kasi 'di ba pag party list system, ang dinadala kasi nila is ang partido, ang kanilang party lists, and a resident thereof for a period of not less than 1 year preceding the election day. I-remember lang, pag Senate, 24 senators. Pag House of Rep, not more than 250. Pag Senate, ang edad, 35 above. Next, pag House of Rep, ang edad, 25 above. Pag Senate, dapat nasa Pilipinas, not less than 2 years. Pag House of Representatives, dapat nasa Pilipinas, not less than 1 year. So yan yung sa Legislative Department, i-remember lang, bicameralism. Pero may question before sa board exam, ang naging question is, ano daw yung combination ni Senate and House of Rep? Pag combination na siya yan guys, ang tawag na is unicameralism. So again, pag combined, unicameralism, pag bulag, bicameralism. Ang Pilipinas today, unicameral or bicameral? Tayo is bicameral. Now, punta tayo kay Executive Department, of course, kay President tayo. So the executive power shall be vested in, clue, the President of the Philippines. Kanina, pag legislative, it's more on the Congress. This time, pag executive, it's more on the President. And no person may be elected as President unless he is a natural-born citizen of the Philippines. Kailangan ha, mama, papa, Filipino, natural-born sa Pilipinas, and hindi siya foreigner. Now, ano yung qualifications na magiging president and vice president? I-remember ha, ito yung usually ang lumalabas, mga age nila. Dapat natural-born citizen of the Philippines, registered voter, able to read and write, and kung kanina sa Senate 35 and above, sa House of Rep 25 and above, this time sa President and Vice President, dapat 40 years old and above. And kung kanina sa House of Rep, dapat not less than 1 year ang residency, pag Senate, not less than 2 years, this time kailangan residente ka ng Pilipinas for at least 10 years. So that is for the President and the Vice President. Now, we have here the powers of the President. So si President, meron siyang power of appointment. Ibig sabihin, maka-appoint siya ng mga gusto niyang maging gabinete. So the President appoints members of the Constitutional Commissions, ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, or officers of the AFP. Same kay Marcos, di ba? Siya ang nag-appoint na magusto niyang kaalyado or maging part ng kanyang gabinete. Pero meron din siyang power of executive clemency. So dito na nabelong ang reprieve, ang commutations, ang pardons. Now, let's start discussing ano yung pagkakaiba ni pardon, reprieve, commutation, amnesty. Now, focus muna tayo guys kay pardon and amnesty kasi silang dalawa ang medyo magkatulad. Ang i-remember nyo guys, pag pardon, it is act of grace. Again, pag pardon, act of grace. Pag amnesty, act of mercy. So, start muna tayo with pardon. An act of grace proceeding from the President that exempts the individual on whom it is bestowed from the punishment the law inflicts for a crime he has committed. So, when we say pardon, pag act of grace, ibig sabihin, pag pardon, gi-award siya sa mga tao na na-convict na. Ibig sabihin, binigay siya sa mga taong na-preso na or found guilty na sila. So kaya nga 'di ba act of grace kasi kahit na guilty sila, binigyan sila ng chance na makalabas. Pero usually ang binibigyan ng pardon yung medyo tigulang na sa prisuhan or medyo may mga sakit na, so pardon ang binibigay. So I remember lang ang pardon na kulong, convicted, guilty, pero pinalaya. That is act of grace, pardon. Pero when we say amnesty, it is an act of mercy. Di ba? When we say mercy, na forget lang nimo ang offense. An act of mercy from the President with the consent of Congress granted to certain classes of persons who have committed crimes. Now, when we say amnesty, it's given to persons who have not faced a trial and not been convicted. So, ibig sabihin, ang amnesty, yes, nakakommit sila ng crime probably, pero hindi pa sila guilty. Unlike kay pardon, guilty pero pinalaya. Si amnesty, hindi pa sila convicted, hindi pa sila guilty, ongoing pa ang trial pero nisuko sila ba? So that's the time hindi na tinuloy ang kaso sa kanila. Usually guys, ang amnestiya, binibigay ito sa mga NPA. Remember, ang mga NPA, nakakommit yan sila ng crime. Pero hindi pa sila guilty. Pero sumuko sila. So the moment sumuko sila, kinalimutan na lang ng gobyerno ang kanilang kasalanan, hindi na lang sila kinulong. That is amnesty. So again, pag pardon, act of grace. Pag amnesty, act of mercy. Pag pardon, nakulong, na-convict, guilty, pero pinalaya. Pag amnesty, hindi pa naka-face ng trial, hindi pa convicted, pero kinalimutan ang kasalanan, pinalaya. So that is amnesty. So, ibig sabihin, mas mabigat ang pardon kasi nga guilty ka pero binigyan ka ng chance. So, pardon and amnesty. Now, proceed tayo sa reprieve and commutation. When we say reprieve, ang clue natin, postponement of the sentence imposed to a lesser punishment. Next, pag commutation, reduction of the sentence imposed to a lesser punishment. Ano yung differences nila? When we say reprieve, guys, gipostpone lang siya, ibig sabihin gisuspend lang siya ba? Say for example, dapat ka nang patayin today. What if lang? Dapat ka nang patayin pero gipostpone pa lang siya. Hindi pa siya tinuloy. Baka pwede pa another trial para bumaba pa ang kaso. Baka pwede na lang long-term prison. Pero again, gipostpone lang siya para additional trial pa. Pero when we say commutation, hindi siya gipostpone, na-reduce na talaga siya kasi reduction na siya sa sentence. So pag commutation, example, from reclusion perpetua, ang ginawa na lang sa'yo is 10 years na pagkakakulong. So, nibaba ba siya? Yes, that is commutation. Ang reprieve, padulong pa siya mubaba, pero gipostpone pa siya in case baka na pay next na mga trial. So, again, pag reprieve, postponement. Pero, pag commutation, reduction. Na-reduce na talaga pag commutation. So, again, balik tayo guys. When we say pardon, act of grace. Ibig sabihin, convicted, may kasalanan, guilty, pero pinalaya. Next, when we say amnesty, act of mercy, hindi pa naka-face ng trial, hindi pa na-convict, hindi pa guilty, pero kinalimutan ang kasalanan. Next, when we say reprieve, gipostpone lang siya, pero pag commutation, na-reduce na talaga, example, from long-term imprisonment to 10 years na lang. So that is commutation. Pero pag reprieve ha, gipostpone, gisuspend muna. Now, proceed tayo kay Judicial Department. So, ang Judicial Department, sila 'di ba yung sa Chief Justice, Supreme Court, Associate Justices. The judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such lower courts as may be established by law. Now, when we say judicial power, it is the power to apply the law to contests and disputes concerning legally recognized rights or duties between the state and private person or between individual litigants in case properly brought before the judicial tribunal. I-remember lang guys, pag more on judicial department, sila yung more on naga-interpret ng batas, sila yung Supreme Court. Sila yung naga-say if guilty or not guilty ang isang tao sa isang kaso. Now, punta tayo kay Section 4. The Supreme Court shall be composed of 1 Chief Justice and 14 Associate Justices. My question before, ilan ang members ng Supreme Court? Hindi 14. Ang member ay 15, isang Chief Justice and 14 Associate Justices. And kung kanina, ang Senator 6 years lang, ang President 6 years, ang Vice President 6 years, ang House of Representatives 3 years, this time ang term of office ng mga miyembro ng Supreme Court is wala. Members of the Supreme Court have no fixed term of office and they hold office during good behavior until they reach 70 years old or become incapacitated to perform their duties. That's the reason why, guys, kung mapapansin natin, most of the members of the Supreme Court, even ang mga Chief Justice natin, sila yung mga matatanda na talaga kasi wala silang fixed term of office. So ang technique nyo guys dito sa Phil.Con, i-remember nyo ang age ng president na needed in terms of qualifications ni senator and ni House of Rep. Ang mga members, ang term of office, yan kasi usually ang gina-question. Now, ano yung qualifications kung gusto mo maging part sa judicial department? Una, a natural born citizen of the country, same with the others. Next, at least 40 years old at the time of appointment, same kay President and Vice President. Next, must have been for 15 years or more a judge of a lower court or engaged in the practice of law in the country, and must be a person of proven competence, integrity, probity, and independence. So again, dapat pag member ng Supreme Court, 40 years old and above. Pero guys, aside sa Supreme Court, we also have special courts. When we say special courts, sila yung mga korte na nakafocus lang, nakaspecialize lang exclusively sa isang kaso. Una is ang Court of Tax Appeals. So pag Court of Tax Appeals, it has exclusive jurisdiction over taxes cases appealed by private citizens and commercial firms. Ibig sabihin, pag meron kang case na tax evasion, hindi ka papunta sa Supreme Court, papunta ka sa Court of Tax Appeals. Next, we also have Sandigan Bayan sa mga corrupt na opisyales. The Sandigan Bayan, it is a special anti-graft court and it decides cases involving graft and corruption by government officials and employees. Kaya nga guys, before sa mga balita, kung ma-remember natin, the moment ng isang tao or isang government official is corrupt, hindi siya papunta kay Supreme Court but kay Sandigan Bayan. So remember, ang highest court natin sa Pilipinas, Supreme Court. But we also have special courts na ang focus lang nila mga specific na kaso. Pag ang mga kaso regarding tax, papunta ka sa Court of Tax Appeals. Pero pag ang kaso mo is graft and corruption, papunta ka kay Sandigan Bayan. Ma'am, what if nakapatay ko? Papunta ka kay Supreme Court. Sa kanila na yun na case. And we also have Ombudsman, other term, Tanod Bayan. Investigates cases of graft and corruption in government, and it acts as prosecutor in bringing graft cases before the Sandigan Bayan. So ibig sabihin, pag corrupt ka, mag-start ka muna sa ombudsman. After that, punta ka kay Sandigan Bayan. So ano ang tawag sa kanila? Sila ang mga special courts. Now, we also have constitutional commissions. Sila yung mga independent ang provisions, independent constitutional bodies, and we have 3 constitutional commissions. Una, civil service. We also have commission on audit and COMELEC. Now, let's start with commission on civil service. Again, independent sila ng mga provisions. The Central Personnel Agency of the government, whose primary goal is to professionalize the Philippine service system by setting standards and enforcing laws and rules governing the selection, utilization, training, and discipline of civil servants. So, di ba usually pag sa civil service, sila yung gusto magtrabaho sa gobyerno. Kaya gusto nilang makapasa sa civil service exam. But remember, 3 lang ang ating mga constitutional commissions. Una, Commission on Civil Service. Ang second na independent is ang Commission on Audit. Has the responsibility of ensuring transparency and accountability in government service, particularly in the use of public funds. So again constitutional commissions, Commission on Civil Service, Commission on Audit, and ang last, Commission on Election. So kanina, ang special courts, tax appeals, we also have Sandigan Bayan and Ombudsman. Pero pag Constitutional Commission, Civil Service, COA, and COMELEC. So created ang COMELEC for the purpose of ensuring free and honest elections and protecting the popular will of the people as expressed in the ballot. So again, ano yung 3 natin na constitutional commissions? We have Commission on Civil Service, Commission on Audit, and ang Commission on Election. And ang last topic natin for Phil.Con is ang local government unit. So meron tayong different na mga LGU sa Pilipinas, starting off with barangay. So ang barangay, guys, paki-remember, siya ang basic unit of the government. So dili purok ha, ang basic unit is barangay. And it is made up of at least 2,000 inhabitants. So imagine, sa una, before, sa pre-colonial Philippines, ang barangay lang composed of 30 to 100 families. But this time, 2,000 na ang inhabitants. It functions as the primary planning and basic services delivery unit. So again, pag may question, ano ang basic unit ng gobyerno? Sagot is barangay. And ang head, hindi na dato or raha, hindi na din kabesa di barangay, but punong barangay. Siya ang nag-head sa sangguniang barangay. Now, after barangay, higher tayo, proceed tayo sa cities and municipalities. So, pag cities and municipalities, composed sila of different barangays. Pag cities, must have an annual income of at least 20 million pesos, a land area of at least 50 square kilometers, and a population of not less than 150 inhabitants. So guys, ang cities and municipalities, nagkakaiba-iba sila because of the categories or because of qualifications. Ang syudad, dapat ang income 20 million pesos yearly. Next, ang land area 50 square kilometers, and ang population is not less than 150 inhabitants. Next, when we say province, consists of cities and municipalities. Ay, tama guys. Ma'am, what if hindi umabot ng 20 million? What if 15 million lang per year? Tapos ang inhabitants 120,000 lang. Yan is ano na siya, municipality. Pero pag lumagpas siya sa criterion, then that is for cities. Ang province consists of cities and municipalities, malaki na siya na area, has an area of at least 2,000 square kilometers with a population of at least 250,000 inhabitants. So again, barangay, next, municipalities, next, cities, and then provinces. And that ends our Philippine Constitution. Okay, guys, so this time, let's rationalize our quiz. Let's start with number 1. In the decade of 70s, one clamor of the activists who staged street demonstration on the streets was down with the oligarchs. What did they accuse government of as suggested by the underlined word? Government was, ang clue natin guys is oligarch. So pag oligarchy, sila yung aristocrats, mayayaman sa lipunan. So ibig sabihin, ang sagot natin dito is alpha, a rule of few rich. Next, number 2. With the batasang pambansa performing legislative and executive powers in the Marcos regime, which form of government was implemented? Guys, ang nakastipulate is, ano ang form of government sa time ni Marcos? Mali po ang diktatorial. When we say diktatorial, yan yung way sa pag-manage ni Marcos sa Pilipinas. Hindi naman yan form of government. Ang form of government natin, pwede siya presidential, pwede din siya parliamentary. Now, pag kay Marcos, iba or nag-merge ang legislative at ang executive, ibig sabihin, parliamentary. Number 2, alpha, parliamentary, not dictatorial. Next, number 3. What form of government is characterized by the separation of powers? Pag separation of powers, iba ang legislative, iba ang executive. Yan yun sa Pilipinas ngayon. Sagot is presidential. Again, pag separation of powers, presidential. Pero pag no separation of powers kay Marcos, parliamentary. Next, number 4. Which of the following represents the smallest subunit of government in the Philippines at present? Guys, wag i-answer ang purok. Remember, ang basic unit ng local government is barangay. Bravo. Next, number 5. The Philippine government is divided into 3 branches. We have executive, legislative, and also judiciary. Which among the following doctrines best describe the model of governance in the Philippines? So ang nakita nyo dyan guys, iba ang executive, iba ang legislative, iba ang judiciary. So ano yung nangyari? Wala ta nag-discuss og tricameralism. Hindi din tayo nag-discuss ng division of labor. So ang tawag dito is separation of powers. Again, separation of powers. Next, number 6. Which type of governance is characterized by a union of partially self-governing states or region united by a central government? Guys, ang nakasulat ha, self-governing states. Ibig sabihin, iba-iba na state pero meron lang central government. Ang tawag is federalism alpha. Next, number 7. In England, Queen Elizabeth acts as head of the state. This country also has a parliament and a prime minister, which among the following best describes the form of government in this country. So pag bumalik ito siya na question, guys, pag si Queen Elizabeth, di ba, pag monarchy, ibig sabihin, rule of one. Yan talaga yun sa England. Pero ang nangyari is, si Queen Elizabeth, meron pa siyang mga prime minister and meron siyang parliament. So, ibig sabihin, hindi absolute ang power. Ang tawag sa kanila is constitutional monarchy. Bravo. Next, number 8. Which principle states that no man in this country is above the law and that laws must be obeyed by all and applied to everyone, rich or poor, lowly or powerful, without fear or favor? What do you think is our answer? Dapat daw walay tao na above pa sa batas kasi ang batas is batas. Hindi siya rule of majority, that is democracy. Hindi din siya social justice, ang tawag is rule of law. Ibig sabihin, mas taas ang law compared sa tao. Next, number 9. Can a person be imprisoned for debt? Mapriso ba ta guys sa utang? Answer is no. Charlie, nasa Constitution ito siya. And last number, what does presumption of innocence mean in so far as human rights is concerned? Pag presumption of innocence, sagot is delta. A suspect remains innocent until proven guilty, presumption of innocence.